Where did that mindset shift happen for you? Was there a moment where that mindset shift
Matrix,
happened?
man. Blue pill, green pill, or whatever.
Yeah, I think that big shift came when we were talking about this a little before, where I literally took a piece of paper, drew a line right down the center of
Pros,
it.
cons.
One side I wrote being in real estate, and the other side I wrote business. And I looked at this and I thought, everything that I'm doing is about being in real estate. And what I mean by that is that it all is around me. I make all the decisions. I'm the creative one. And there's nothing that can happen in regarding a deal unless I'm involved.
Yeah.
Right? I have to do all the offers. I have to do all this stuff. And what I wasn't doing, I wasn't building a true business to become a company. I looked at this and I thought, there's a big difference here. And I thought, what's the difference between having a hamburger place that you can scale? Well, it's coming down to systems, processes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having the right people in place. And I said, if I focus on the business side, then what happens over here is I'm just moving product.
Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in so far. If you've enjoyed what you've been listening to and you're looking to scale your real estate portfolio, we have our Scalers Only Mastermind that is now open and accepting applications. So, if you'd like to join the family, be a part of the community, and scale your business, all you got to do is click the link below.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Scalers Only Show, where we talk real estate, business, lifestyle, and everything in between. Today, I got my man, Mr. Jerry Green, on, and before I want to try to give you a proper introduction. All right, okay. This guy literally has been in the real estate business, and I'm excited that we're going to talk some real estate hopefully today. For 29 years, owns one of the greatest wholesale acquisitions companies, maybe in the whole region, maybe in the damn United States. Also has a massive education company as well, and actually just bought a company.
Yes.
And it's pretty exciting, and I definitely want to get into that.
Cool.
But this man has been around the block or two with real estate, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you, guys.
Glad
I appreciate that. Yeah. Absolutely, man.
So
excited to be here.
Absolutely, man. So tell us a little bit about like your operation, what you have going on right now, how that looks, and kind of the 29 years that it's taken to build up what you've got right now.
Okay. Well, currently the way it looks right now is the way we got it set up is basically the main focus is our wholesale organization, and I look at it this way as we have several different product lines that I like to define that way within the organization. One of them being our wholesale side. The other being we run a lot of stuff through novation process too. Okay, and then thirdly is we still buy and hold some properties. Now we don't buy and hold as much as we used to. I know we were talking a little before the show even that my goal on that is to crank that up more, but it's more about bringing my sons, which are getting to the age now where they want to get involved in the business on that side of things. So, but what we've got it structured now is pretty well. It's set up where on my side of things, guys, is I'm not actively involved in the day-to-day side of things at all anymore.
That's
so if you look at the operational side, I really don't do anything on it. Okay?
Which is great because this is Scalers Only podcast.
Yeah,
this is literally talking
so it makes
about,
sense, right?
Yeah,
kind of goes with the Scalar podcast, but. Yeah, so my focus is probably around 2, maybe 3 hours a week on the real estate side, and that side is really only focused towards high-end meetings. So, and I meet with my COO Ashley,
leadership team.
Yep, leadership team. So we look at basically our weekly meeting. We do a deep dive into things, look at all metrics of the business and things like that. And then I'm really involved. If you look at it, I'm involved in that meeting. And then we do a weekly financial meeting too, to look at all the books. So we look at basically the P&Ls, balance sheets, and stuff like that on a weekly basis. So we do that. So those are my main meetings that I'm involved with. And then other than that, it's more supportive type stuff in regards to the team and culture, mindset, sales, techniques and things like that I'll do, which I really enjoy doing.
Yeah.
But other than that, the team is set up where we have people that are in-house in our office over in Dayton, Ohio, as well as virtual. So we have a mixture. And we have some of our team members that are in Florida, some of them are in Colorado.
All over the
Yeah.
place.
Scattered throughout.
Yeah.
Shoot, I want to work for this company. I
So-
want to be.
So, and then my
Bobby, you don't
COO,
work.
Ashley, she actually works from Colorado, which I know you guys have
Yeah.
met Ashley before.
Yeah, Ash is awesome.
Question
you're-
for you. You mentioned Novation and that thing. I don't. That's something newer that's coming out too. How much, like, obviously you know the numbers. What percent of your business now is Novation and wholesale?
We're starting to see that increase continually all the time on the novation process, and we basically are probably pushing upwards of, I don't know, let's say, if I would give it a percentage, I would say 35% or so.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
You find that's actually helped a lot with that coming out and everything with the no. I mean,
Oh yeah. Well, interesting thing, it's been around for years.
yeah, just like people are now
Yeah.
like learning about it more and.
You know, we the funny thing is I mean, I was actually doing a form of novations. I mean, back in early 2000s, I didn't know what it was. You know, it was and then the whole thing was that we were doing on that was, you know, you guys how they implemented the seasoning regarding like if you're gonna buy and fix and flip a home and somebody's going to get a FHA loan on that.
3 months.
Yeah, so we started. That's where we kind of started playing with that back then, when they started really implementing that. So, and then now it's become very sexy type thing. It's a whole strategy, but it works out really well.
Yeah.
So,
But
and
there's always a strategy in every market.
yeah, there's always a strategy in every market. And what we look at, I guess, our big thing is we're really focused on programs. Okay, so when we look at working with the seller, we look at what program do they qualify for. Okay, so see, most people in this business, what they do, it's very focused towards the we buy houses people, right? We buy houses, we pay cash,
houses.
that type of thing, right? So what's that?
We buy
crack
crack
houses.
houses.
Yeah,
we
crack
buy
houses.
crack
Let that
houses.
go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, we use that a lot of times as marketing, but that's not how we focus as a company. We're more focused on a service company. So even with our sellers, so when the sellers come in, the leads come in, we're very program focused. So it's like if I'm talking to you, Brian, I'm running you through, and I'm talking to you as a
And
seller.
I'm recently divorced.
Recently
and-
divorced, right? But let's just say I'm in a position where
Already,
I'm
dude?
talking to you, and your property doesn't work for what we would call our cash out program.
Yeah.
So what I would do is basically say, hey, Brian, you know what, man? I am so sorry, dude, but unfortunately your property doesn't qualify for our cash out program. But I do have another program if you'd like to learn more about it. The cool thing about this other program, I think I can get you a little bit more money if you're interested in hearing more about it, in exchange for giving us a little more time and giving us the ability to also get access to the property and just also, be able to put it out on the market some. So how does that sound to you? And then what typically most sellers are going to do is say, well, I am interested in that a little bit more. Okay. And then we'll just basically move them to another program. So, and you just got to look at that. So you got to learn how to take leads that come in, disqualify them for one program, move them to another program. And then what you'll find is your conversions will go through the roof, because now you're in a position where you're not the single shot investor anymore.
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
Yeah. So
absolutely,
then
man.
That's
are
why
you,
it works,
are
I
you,
think, right now.
Are you rehabbing these, or are you just going in cleaning them out?
No, most of the time we don't do anything.
Because people are still in it, I think, right?
Yeah, a lot of times. And remember, we're not even on a novation. All we're
Yeah.
doing is controlling it.
Right.
Okay. The cool thing about it is it allows us to take a deal and put it on the MLS that we don't own.
And get financing for it too.
Right.
People-
And we can pull in conventional FHA buyers, VA buyers.
Your buyer
Right.
pool.
Your
opens
pool,
up
yeah, to a whole
tremendously.
big.
Yeah. And you
Which-
look at. So think about this. What's the most powerful buyer list you could ever have is what? MLS.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's like, especially when anybody that had a pulse could invest in real estate 12 months ago
Exactly.
or 18 months ago,
Exactly.
right? And I'm not knocking everyone that jumped into real estate,
100%.
but it was easy because all you had to do was just flip things to the next hedge fund that was going to overpay for it. But now we actually have to find real buyers, and there's an art and a science to finding a real buyer or a
100%.
real investor. But the fact that you're doing that, and then you're like, okay, well, how do I find more buyers? I open it up to the MLS, and I'm still running the same business. It's a hell of a strategy, man.
Well, and you look at it this way too. It's like, okay, we typically we're buying wholesale, right?
Yep.
Okay. So when we buy wholesale, that does shrink the pool of sellers we can work with. So what we look at, okay, so if we look at, here we are working with a wholesale deal. We buy here, then we mark it up and we sell here. Then they're turning around and renovate it, and then they're going to sell up here, right?
Mhm.
So the thing is a lot of times we get leads coming into our funnel that are in a position where we can't buy them here, but we could potentially buy them here, which is right below what the market value is. But what happens is those deals sometimes are like ones that maybe just need cleaned up. They're dated.
Mhm.
Maybe some elderly person had lived there for many years and they're just dated. So what happens on those have a market value, but they typically have an as-is market value.
Yeah.
So let's just say the property is worth, after repair value is, let's say 150, as-is value might be 135. Well, and as an investor, okay, on that side of things,
Doesn't
if
work
we're,
for you.
if we're buying it wholesale, we
Yeah.
got to buy way down here, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
But wonder if we could be in a position where instead of buying it for, $60,000 or something like that, we could potentially buy that deal for $90,000.
Mm.
And now the seller is in a position, well, I can work with that.
Mhm.
So in exchange for me giving you more money for your property, all I'm looking at is the ability to have more time, the ability to have access to the property, and to market it.
They have a
So-
set price too. Like you'll say, "Hey, I'll get you 140 or whatever," and then anything over that, you also have to keep too, right?
Exactly.
So,
And that's what we get to keep.
yeah, they get capped out. Like, you know what? I'll give
Yeah.
you a little bit more money, but anything over that's coming to me. So you settle on that price.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And actually, what we're finding is a lot of times we actually make more on the novation deals than we do on a regular
It's
wholesale.
open up to retail in a way.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a
Yeah.
wholesaler opening
Yeah.
up to retail world, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Then the cool thing about the other place is, well, why don't they just list it with the real estate agent? Well, they can list it with the real estate agent, but here's what we do: is we pick up the commissions
Yeah.
out of our fee. So let me ask. So if they say that, we'll say, okay, good. You should talk to your real estate agent about this. Let me just, if you would, ask your real estate agent if they're willing to pay their commissions out of their fee. What?
Yeah.
No. So we're picking up that side of things.
That's
Hmm.
dope.
Yeah.
That's dope.
So, how did you get to this point? Because obviously, you didn't just start where everything was scaled and you weren't involved in the business. It
It was
took
all
a long
handed to
time.
him. You didn't know that? Just came down.
Yeah,
and
Yeah, just all of a sudden it was a house fairy and it flew by my house.
house fairy.
Yeah.
Because 29 years ago,
Yeah.
and
It was a different time.
You filed bankruptcy.
Yes,
back
so-
in the day too. So
Yep.
you didn't have a great start. I mean,
No, so it was in 1993. 93 is when I filed bankruptcy.
Wow.
And the reason I filed bankruptcy on that was prior to that, my father and I, this was over in Springfield, Ohio, my father and I were in the electrical contracting business together. And I was doing that since mid 80s. After I got out, I was in the Air Force. I got out of the Air Force, went back home, started working with my dad in the electrical contracting business. So, and then we built things up. And as an electrical contractor, we did a lot of work for GCs, so a lot of smaller, general contractors. There were several large ones. Well, I basically had one general contractor that ended up closing his doors on us. And I'll never forget this. I'll still remember this. It was on a Sunday night, and he called me at home. You got to remember, back then we didn't have cell phones. Some of you are listening.
Landlines.
There was actually a wall phone. It was typically in the kitchen on
Yeah,
the
with
wall.
the long cord.
With
Right, guys?
around,
You guys
around spiral
remember,
cord,
right?
you can walk
Yeah.
around.
So I
12-foot
went
cord.
out.
What do they call it? The roller dial?
Rotary, bro.
Yeah.
Rotary.
Rotary.
No.
The rotary phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went and picked the phone, and I talked to a gentleman. And actually, still remember, his name was Jim, and he told me, "Say, hey, Jerry, we are. I just want to let you know we're closing our doors to our company, and I wanted to call you tonight and give you a little bit of advance notice before you find out." I said, "Oh, wow," and he says, "And just want to let you know that obviously we owe you the money. Not sure what we're going to be able to do on that right now." And he owed us little.
I was going to ask
I mean,
how
back
much.
then it was a big chunk, but you take it back then, it was major hit. And we had a small business over $60-some thousand. And for a very small business, that
Starting
was a
out.
major hit. So
Yeah, I mean,
we
that'd
were
be
in
like 200 grand nowadays.
Yeah,
To be
oh,
honest,
yeah,
like with
absolutely.
inflation.
So we were in a position where like, oh man, and I said, well, when you close? And he goes, tomorrow morning. So
Some foreknowned.
yeah, it was advance notice. So he closed his doors. We weren't able to recover from that, and we ended up going bankrupt on that.
Jesus.
So it was kind of funny on that whole side of things. Is during that whole time that I was going through that, at the same time I had been studying a little bit on real estate. You know, remember back then there's no podcast, there's no YouTube, nothing like that.
Cassette tapes.
Cassette tapes. Yes.
8 tracks, man. 8 tracks.
Yes.
No, 90s didn't have 8 tracks. Never mind.
So I was reading a little bit on the books and stuff like that, and then I saw an advertisement on the local TV station about a seminar coming up in Cincinnati, Ohio, and a lot of people probably won't recognize his name.
I think I remember the story.
Charles Givens was the guy's name, and he's since passed away, but that was his organization. So I went to that seminar in Cincinnati and listened to him for about 3 days, telling me about different ways you can make money. And one thing that really stuck to me was how I can make quick cash. Because, you got to think about it. I had to pay the bills, take care of the family.
Mm.
So I went back home, and man, I want to make this happen. And then I said, I went out. I met a guy there that, I said, well, I want to really make him my mentor. So I actually went to my mom and dad, borrowed their credit cards, and to be able to pay him.
I've never heard the story.
You borrowed
Yeah.
borrowed money.
I've never heard the story, man.
It was hard money, yes.
Yeah.
Literally.
Original
Yeah.
hard money.
So that's how I
Interest
got
on the
started
interest.
in it. And I borrowed the money on that side of things and hired a mentor, and I started focusing on doing deals. And, back then it was strictly wholesale back then. But this was over in Springfield. And, you guys got to remember back then too, man, it was like people don't realize how good they got it now when it comes to getting leads in. Even though there's a lot of competition and stuff.
No digital stuff. No.
Oh, shit. No.
It's all hard.
I mean, it was crazy. It was
white pages.
you had to work your ass off on things, literally. I mean, it was pounding the streets.
Literally driving for dollars.
It was
or
driving
walking,
for dollars.
knocking on
Dude,
doors.
that's most of the time we spent driving for dollars. And we would turn around, and then also running ads in the newspaper.
Yeah.
So, like, ads in the newspaper was our pay-per-click.
Yeah.
Okay? And what we would do is we would fight for positions. That was so funny. Like, in Springfield, we'd run ads, that we buy houses.
I want to be
I want
right
the
in
top, I want the
eyesight.
bottom.
Yeah.
And it was funny because what had happened on that, there was like 3 or 4 of us. And
On the same page.
on the same page.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, they all
That's
had
competition.
one classified area. And then what happened on that, we noticed like whoever had their ad at the top, typically would get the calls first. So
Because it was like they were running down the line.
Right.
They were first on Google,
It was
baby.
first,
guess
yeah.
what? They done alphabetical order.
Oh, so you started.
So we started adding the letter A in front of We Buy Houses.
Hey, we're A1 houses. What are you
Right.
talking about?
And then it got to the point where they caught on the other people.
I'm AAA now. Hey.
And that's what we did.
No way.
We added 3 A's and stuff. And then finally the newspaper.
Then you
was-
started getting calls
they
for
called
towing
us,
your truck.
And they said, guys, we're not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
Because we were trying to like add 4 or 5 A's in front of it.
yeah, but the first line's all A's.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it's AAA. You come tow my
So
car.
that's what we did. And then
Dude,
drive
that is
dollars.
entrepreneurship at its finest.
It's
right there.
hey.
And here, so we
OG marketing.
we would basically go out, and I would take
That's
one
old
of-
SEO right
one
there,
of my
man.
nieces or something like that, and they'd be in the car with me, and we'd drive around neighborhoods. I make them write it all down. Then we would have to pull the information. Now remember, we couldn't go online.
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
skip trace.
So
or-
here's what we do: we pull that information. We designated a day each week that we go to the courthouse physically,
Mm.
Uh-huh.
and we go in and we pull the records. So like 50 addresses would take us about 4 to 6 hours,
Wow.
and we had to
Can
pull
you
up.
imagine that?
We had to pull up the microfiche. So
Oh
those-
shoot, looking them up and
Yes, yes, and you had to look them up, or you get the big
Uh,
books out.
I was going to say, could you get it out of yellow pages then when people were still putting their phone numbers in?
They had their phone
Not the
numbers,
full, like
and stuff
county
on that,
records though,
but,
like name ownership.
Yeah.
but we had
So-
to. But see, we were pulling up the tax mailing addresses, so it was a
Mhm,
lot of work.
right.
Then we mailed that. So, I mean, we had a good response rate because nobody was really doing it. So we done that. We done driving for dollars, and or that side we done We Buy Houses signs, all this stuff that was very guerrilla type marketing, flyers. I had all my family members. I plastered stuff all over their vehicles, and
I love this shit.
no wonder it's
Yeah,
easy for
I
you
do.
now. Shoot, nowadays you're like I can just click and get this, and it's that much easier.
yeah, I mean it was crazy. I mean, you had to work your butt off.
Yeah.
though. And I remember many times I was going out in the the ghettos of Springfield, putting deals together, literally taking boards off of windows, crawling in places and stuff. And I would do is
Makes it exciting.
I would do a lot of deals a lot of investors wouldn't do. I worked on what I call a lot of times turd farming. So I would go out, find the turds in the really bad areas, and homes I could lock up for
Polish
a couple
them up.
–
$1,000.
crack houses.
All right. Yeah, exactly. And what I would do is I go out and I control those. So here's what I would do on that. I would talk to people and say, look, even back then I was like, I just don't think the only program I really have for this is my option to purchase program. Like, what's that? I go, well, what it is, it's a program that allows me to take your property to my database of buyers. Back then it was just my buyers list. I didn't know what the hell a database was.
That's some salesmanship. It's my database.
So I just take it to my buyers
Roll the
list
dicks.
that I have, my cash funders, basically, and then I'll do everything I can to get moved for you. I can't promise you anything.
Yeah.
So I would write them up, and literally I would go to people's homes, write up an option to purchase for 90 days, and I would give them an option fee to make it a real legal option.
Yeah.
So I give them $1. No shit.
Ah.
I would pull out of my pocket, I give them $1 right there.
That's your EMD.
Cash, and I'd say, "Here's the $1," and they would laugh. I said, "But yeah, I got to give you this. I give you $1," and that was my fee on that. And then I think I raised it to $10.
Yeah.
So
to be a little bit legit.
10x right there.
so then we would just market the hell out of that. And
Creative
then
genius, man.
would,
Shoot.
and the thing is, we had to run it. Think about this: we had to control, get the property under contract. Then the only way we could market it before we had a buyer's list is we had to turn around and put the ad in the newspaper to sell it.
Yeah.
So
How much does that cost then?
So it would take sometimes 3
Yeah, I
or
was
4
gonna
days
say.
to get the ad in the newspaper. So, and then if we wanted photos, we take the photos and we had to go up to the drugstore, get them developed.
Develop
I
and
was
then
gonna
take.
say,
Yeah.
Wow.
Just the time.
The time to-
Polaroids. Then you have to paste 20 of them
So
back to back.
when did the internet start changing the game
Yeah.
in real estate? Like, what year did you specifically look and you're like, this is changing the game?
Well, it was all about times when Al Gore invented it.
Yeah, right.
I invented the
I
internet.
invented the internet. So,
Internets.
so Terry, on that side of things, bro, it really started changing probably 2000. Really not heavy until later, like 2007, 2008, when we started seeing some more shifts on that,
Yeah.
on things.
Yeah.
Because other than that, it was we were using it, but it wasn't heavy.
It was
you
still
know?
slow too. Dial up. It would
was
take 5
dial
hours
up.
to have one picture come up.
Because back in the 90s and even early 2000s,
That's crazy thinking about.
we done everything on the MLS. All the MLS stuff was from a book.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
It was like a freaking phone book. So what we would do is we had agents we worked with, and we go pick up the book. So they would say, "Hey, we're done with last week's book," and they say, "You can come pick it up." So we go pick it up. It's like a phone
See
book,
what's there.
and we would and had black and white pictures, and I would have somebody go through it and highlight any potential deals.
Is it crazy
Wild.
seeing it come full circle now and how different it is?
Yeah, it's like people just don't have any idea what it was like, unless they
To
were
really
around back
bootstrap.
then. Yeah, dude, it was a grind. It was a real grind on things, and I grinded it harder than most people, and that was the big reason that I was able to make it grow.
Where do you think
So-
it's headed next? Because it went from that to internet. What do you think the next thing?
I mean,
like
I
with
think
AI
that-
stuff and all
I
this.
think the AI side and then like blockchain and all that side is really going to be a big component.
So, kind of morphing forward, you mentioned 07, 08. So, and we're going through whatever the hell we're going through right
Who
now.
knows at this point?
We're dating this as March 8th, 2023. But, how did that happen? What did you see? What did you notice? Was there some pivotal moments during that time where you're like, shit's hitting the fan? Or what was that whole period like?
Really, during that time, I was chugging along with a lot of rehabs, Terry.
Is this
Yeah,
08
okay.
we're talking about?
Yeah. So that was my big focus. I went from kind of wholesaling to I started buying and holding some, but I done a lot of fix and flip. And during that time, I had a lot of inventory setting out. Okay. Most of it was on private capital. Okay. Back then it was, people, you didn't really hear a lot of talk about hard money. It was just it was just private.
It was
money.
all private.
Yeah, it was all private money, but it was basically hard money rates, on that type of thing. So I had a lot of money on the streets on that when that
Hard
changed.
to find that money too, because you couldn't just
Yeah.
advertise people like, "Hey, I'm looking for money" on an Instagram post. You have to go out and network and talk
Yeah,
to people. And
absolutely. And so what happened was the big shift was in our holding time. So now I started noticing these homes, and then now we were stretching out where we were holding homes upwards of 12 months. And it's like, oh shit. And then that kills you on things. So that was, when you don't have any income coming in on that. So we started really seeing that big shift on that side. But what's funny is I just think back then it wasn't, we didn't have the social media stuff and everything that wasn't, so the news didn't spread as much. It was mainly through television, stuff like that, newspaper. So I think it was a lot of delayed stuff. And then all of a sudden it's like a big whammy and stuff. Because I'd done a lot of stuff. I used to speak a lot for Robert Allen. And I don't know if anybody is familiar with him, but Robert Allen's very well known as kind of the master of no money down. He's kind of the granddaddy of starting this whole real estate investor movement when it comes to the creative financing. And I used to do speaking for him back in the early 2000s up to about 2008. So I was doing that and running my real estate business. Well, what happened on that side of things, I still remember this, I was doing an event in San Diego, and it was right in 2008.
St. Diego.
Okay. So I was out in San Diego, and when I'd done that event, we were basically in that room. I still remember that room of investors, and people were talking about some stuff happening in the market. And literally a month later, the educational company that I was doing a lot of stuff for, boom, went down.
Oh wow!
Damn.
It was that fast. And they were doing $1 million per weekend in revenue.
What?
How would it crash that fast?
Anyone you did
What?
business with went down. I'm scared to
So,
do business with. I'm kidding.
That was through the Robert Allen Institute.
So, and obviously,
Jeez.
yeah, I mean, I'm sure it was a good company, but the market, and just to see how many people were influxed into that whole movement back then.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
That's crazy.
We just saw a similar thing happen last year.
Yeah. But I mean,
Not
like,
Not like that.
It wasn't like,
I mean, you got
Which
to
a lot
think
of people
about
don't
that. That
realize.
was back then, too. I mean, it was
That's
direct
true.
relation to the crazy lending that was
Yep.
going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you could literally, as you mentioned, you could fog a mirror and get a loan. I mean, guys, we would back then we were doing. It was very common to do stated income programs. Okay, so we were doing a lot of fix and flips, and back then the common thing was we would actually take our clients to the mortgage broker we work with. This guy named Todd. We would take it in and meet with Todd, and basically, it was no online submission or anything like it. So we take him into the office, and he would sit down and go over with the client, and he started going through things with them about the home they wanted to buy from us. And then he would come to the point about income. He says, looks like for you to qualify this loan, you need to be at right around $3,000 a month in income. So let me ask you a question. How much do you make? And they go, I don't know. And he says, well, you need $3,000 a month
How
to be
much
able
do
to
you
make this.
make?
And they go,
How
oh, I
much do
guess
you make?
$3,000 a month.
Yeah, I
He
made
goes,
3,100. What are you talking
and he
about?
goes, oh yeah, that's the right answer, and that's what he put in. And that's what they did.
That's the bubble.
Yeah. And then they go to close those deals. So, I mean, we're talking selling $50,000, $60,000 properties.
Yeah.
The loan costs were $10,000, $12,000.
So I know exactly. Go ahead.
Jaron, you want to hear something crazy? So, I just got my realtor license. Well, anyway,
Congrats.
We were yeah, thanks. But we had a mortgage company in there that was telling us, and I had thought something like this was going to happen because once the lenders tighten up, then they have to start getting different products, right? To be able
Right.
to make the same amount of money. Because so mortgage applications went down 50%. Well, we have
the
to
refis
figure
went
out
away. Yeah.
the refis went away, so they have to figure out different things. You know what they were talking about again? No income stated loans.
Yep.
And this is how it starts.
That's how it
I was like,
starts.
this is how it starts.
Keep
No
anyone
income
else.
stated, income stated, whatever it is. They're starting to bring out
They
these
started
products
building.
again.
They built it a very weak foundation. That's where that whole 2008 and stuff came from. Period of time they had that. And then also back then, you got to remember too, the big difference between now and then is back then the homes didn't have any equity.
Mhm.
So what happened was when that went down, it was this like chaos everywhere, and then all these
People couldn't get
properties
out.
went in foreclosure. There was no equity for them to get out.
Short
Now a
sales.
lot of people have the equity,
It's true.
okay, but back then it was zero equity, so people were just walking from deals right and left. I mean, literally, guys, during that time, I shifted a lot of my stuff, went over to buying bank-owned properties only. That's all I did for several years. We
Probably
went to
smart.
REO side of things. I had a couple REO agents, brokers I work with, that they spoon-fed me deals,
Yeah.
and that's what it was.
But and that's what so they're starting to do. So now they're expanding the credit score requirements. Like, all right, we'll take 560 and above, right? They're doing
What did I work on my credit
100%.
for?
They're doing 100% LTV loans now, just regular, not for a VA, whatever. They're doing 100%
For certain
Yeah,
demos.
yep.
Yeah.
for certain things, and
That's just disaster waiting to
It
happen.
That's
is.
it's coming again then.
Yeah, I mean that's you're exactly right. I mean, look, those models and mortgage side and all that, they're going to do whatever they have to do to survive.
to be able to survive,
Okay.
100%.
Do you see similarities between then and now, stuff like when it was starting, or
I
do you
mean,
see? I
some
mean, obviously,
of
what's
it,
better
I
now
mean,
from people
I don't
hopefully
think
learning.
we won't be anywhere near what it was, I believe, at all before on that. I mean, that was a
That was a big bust.
That was
Yeah.
a major shit show, and a lot of people have no idea. I remember
Cover up.
literally being in a position where, like the REO gentleman I work with, they were selling upwards of 400 properties a year just through their one local REO branch.
Wow.
Okay, and so inventory was like crazy, and I used
today.
to get the fax list. That's back then. We got all faxes. So in fact, we used to have old thermal fax machines.
Oh, that was the best. The paper curl.
Yes, you come out and curl up, and we get this big list of
Scroll.
properties
That's
every
hilarious.
week, every Thursday. It would come over the REO deals, but most of the time, the cool thing about it, I would know about them beforehand because they would call me and they go, "Hey Jerry, hey, we got one coming up on 123 Main Street. Yep, I think you might like it. Cool. Here's lockbox combo. Go check it out." I knew about it before it was going on the market, and boy, investors would get pissed.
Yeah.
Because we were controlling all these deals and stuff like that. It was nuts.
Now
That's
we know
awesome.
who to take out for dinner.
So
before.
fast forward to today. Man, you have an awesome team. I seen your office. I was
Amazing team.
extremely impressed.
Well, thanks, bro.
Came to your 2-day workshop. It was a no-brainer for me to sign up afterwards. Maybe it was the margarita I had there, but no, I'm kidding. But in all reality, I mean, just the little things that I picked up from that was, even during that 2-day, was amazing for our company.
100%.
So fast forwarding to today, you've got the acquisitions, the wholesaling, you've got the buy and hold, all that types of stuff. Where are you moving with your company at this point?
Well, a big place that we're moving towards is I'm right now. I'm really focused on continue to grow my team, and I want to make sure everybody understands this. When I say grow, it's about growing the company, but growing it as an actual company. Okay, so I think that's something a lot of people need to really think about, because a lot of people create businesses, and you might be doing a business right now. Some of you might be just starting up, and that's fine. But I want you to start thinking about this is how fast can you develop into a real company? Because a company allows you to have something that continues to grow without you being involved in a lot of
being there.
the day-to-day side of things. So that's my main focus now, Terry, is how to keep developing. It's about building this for the team.
Right, and you're
Okay.
you're growing your leaders.
Growing my leaders. Yes.
And most people think grow, they think in numbers, they think of size.
Right.
But you're like, I want to grow my people, not
Exactly.
the number of people. I
Well,
wanna
that's
grow the
longevity
people
right
that
there,
I already
right?
have.
Absolutely.
And-
And we'll continue to add some team members, but a lot of people get also this point where they think, okay, to do this, I have to have this massive team, and that's not true.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like you become very focused on the different areas within your organization, and you become extremely, proficient at that. It's just like, so one of the things we worked with was a sales team, and we took a sales team from 15 people down to 3. The 3 produced more than the 15.
The quality of it.
Okay, and it's because they started focusing really on quality and sales process instead of throwing spaghetti on the wall.
Yeah, which we have
That's
done before.
crazy. Yeah,
Done
no,
that,
100%. Crazy. So what is that the key to scaling your business then? Empowering your leaders that are already in place, or what is
I think
if you had
Wow.
if you had some key factors.
I think a big thing to scaling is, first of all, defining that.
Defining.
The scaling.
Gotcha.
Because see,
What is
I
scaling to
do.
you?
So one of the things we do is we have a scale coaching, okay, and our scale coaching that we focus on that side of things. A lot of people come in and they go, I don't really want to scale. I don't want the big team. I said, no, you got it wrong. I said, scaling is also about systems. It's about your operation. It's about understanding that you can increase and grow your business without having to this, constant thing of having this big team over your head. Okay.
Yep.
So you got to define that and what that really means to you
That's
on the
overhead
scaling.
too,
Yeah. So I think that's a big thing. And then I look at what it comes down to is understanding. I always go back to one of the things I teach a lot on, and you guys heard me look at this, is anytime that somebody talks about scaling, I say, well, let's define what I call the 4 pillars to this business. And I look at this as the 4 pillars to building this and actually scaling this out. And the first pillar I look at is understanding what is your actual true goals in the business. So I usually take people and define it down to revenue first. So I look at what is your revenue goal like for the next 12 months? What does that look like? And then I have them define that even more, because a lot of people go out and they say, well, I want to bring in $2 million in revenue, right? So, but I start thinking, okay, where's that revenue coming from? So this is where the coming in and start thinking more as a business versus just being in real estate. Because see, in real estate, what we can do, we know we can go out and take one deal and we can take it, 20 different ways to make money on it, right?
True.
And see, that's the problem with most people, is they go out and they try to do 20 different ways. And I've done that for a long time.
They become deal chasers instead of business
Exactly.
owners. Yep.
Okay. But see, that's not scalable.
Not at all.
All right. So what you have to look at is define how you're going to create that revenue. And what I like to do is I look at it as like a production line. So I say, okay, one product line I might have is wholesaling. Another product line I might have is doing fix and flips. And let's just say those are my 2 product lines. And then we take that 2 million and we divide it up based upon each product line. Say I want to do maybe $1 million out of one product line and $1 million out of the other product line. Then we start going to the next step of the 4 pillars, which is reverse engineering those product lines. So now we start understanding, okay, now I want to create this amount of money from wholesaling, this amount of fix and flip, and I define it and break those numbers out.
It's so wild because most people are deal chasers, and going back to scalers only, and you're looking at this is like I'm scaling a manufacturing plant almost.
Exactly,
to, like,
Terry. Exactly.
Boom, this product goes through this line. This is the person that touches it. This is how they touch it. This is when they touch it, and this is how the next person touches it, or the next system, or whatever.
Absolutely.
It's exactly
And that's, dude, and I learned that. And I did a lot of hard knocks on that side of things. I learned if you set the goal, you reverse engineer, understand your product lines. And then third, what I look at is I make everybody look at an accountability chart. All the moving parts. Even if somebody says, well, it's just me. I'm the only one doing it. So I'll ask a question. Do you always want to be just you doing it? No, I want to build a team. Then you have to understand all the moving parts, and you have to get a visual on that.
Yeah.
Then we create that. And then the fourth thing we look at is setting in place tracking, which is the KPI side of things.
Yep.
And then once they have that in there, they can start understanding, and it becomes real to them. And so that way, if they're going out and watching a guru speak somewhere, and the guru tells them how they can make $2 million over the next year, then what they can actually do is take that and then run it through the 4 pillars and actually start laying out a true business plan how to achieve that. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Have
man.
SKUs for each product line. I like how it's each product line though. It's like a real business, Like
It does, yeah. Well, you think about this. You guys have, I know you guys have watched the show, like probably The Prophet, or a lot of viewers have.
Yeah.
Love it.
Okay, and then one of the things Marcus will do is he'll go in and you think about, he goes in and looks at all their product lines, and a lot of times he'll strip away.
Just
a lot
strip
of
away
You don't
everything.
need this product's not
Right.
performing. Why do you have it?
See,
Get rid of it.
that's
Makes
the
sense.
problem with most. I'll tell you, one of the
Shiny
biggest
object
limiting
syndrome.
things. Yep.
If it ain't
When-
selling, why do you have it, right? Get
See,
rid
that's
of
the
it.
problem. Like I said, with investors, our biggest thing is we have too many ways to make money in this business.
Damn.
Keep
Think
your
about
eyes
that.
on it,
Dude, you're absolutely right.
I mean, we come
You're
in,
absolutely right.
we come in on this, and then what we look at it, we say we can do the deal this way, and this way.
Too many
right?
backup plans.
The problem is you might know how to do that, but it's not a scalable model. Okay? Niche gets you rich.
I
Okay.
like that.
And you gotta start looking at.
Write that one
Yeah,
down.
I was going to say write that
down.
You can't be in a position. You got to look at how
Love
can I
that.
go on the two lane highway instead of being 8 lane.
and
Okay.
focus it on those two.
Yeah, and you'll see that it's just huge.
Well,
It
decisions
took me a long
cripple people
time.
too.
What's that?
Decisions cripple people.
Oh yeah, but
And
what,
you give
I think
people
that-
too many options.
You
It's
can't
like
make decisions
it's like my
sometimes.
wife. Like, hey, where you want to go to eat? Last night I had date night, dude. It was like it was chaos for 15 minutes, and I was like, this is what we're doing. This is where we're going. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, done.
Well, you know
But
what?
that's most human beings.
Yeah, it's called decision fatigue.
Yeah.
And decision fatigue will destroy you or destroy a business.
Paralyze you.
Yeah, because see, most real estate investors, what they do is they bring a deal into their funnel. Then they ink the deal, and then once they ink it, they say, "Man, should I keep this as a rental? Should I wholesale this?
Airbnb.
Should I fix and flip it?" Right? And you got all these things. That's the decision process. What I teach people is to take all the decision process out. So what you do is you basically look at it for the next year, and you make all your decisions a year ahead of time. And then all you do is decide your product lines ahead of time. So like when Ashley and I go in to lay things out for the new year, like for this year, I already know exactly what our focus is. So you know what that does? It takes me out of all decisions on deals.
The worst thing ever, and this happened to me probably 3 years ago, even up to 2 years ago, is everyone. Hey Terry, I got this deal, man. I got this deal. What should we do with it? Hey Terry, just got this deal. What we do? What we do? Hey Terry, blah blah blah. And when we went to your 2-day, and we have this, this great portfolio of properties, and our biggest thing has always been buy and hold. We have the construction outfit, so it allows us to actually fix stuff, which is the most complicated part of this whole game, if you ask me. But then we have this acquisition, this wholesale piece, this great email list, and all this stuff. And it's like, how do we do this? And when we left there, we're like, we have to, and you use the word constraint.
Yep.
What constraints do we put in place to say, not just based on the deal, but based on where our business is at as well? Where's our business at? Okay, great. Well, we just bought a bunch of properties, so we're cash poor. Okay, then we're wholesaling everything.
Right.
It doesn't matter what the deal looks like. So the business is number one.
Absolutely.
That was a constraint we put in place. And then number two is, what's the deal look like? And so we put those two constraints in place so we can say at any time, we're either fixing and flipping this, we're wholesaling it, or buying and holding it.
Absolutely.
In one way, shape, or form, and it goes in one of those 3 buckets or one of those 3 rooms that I showed you earlier. But without going to your 2-day and learning those constraints, would have never had those things in place.
Yeah, that's a huge component of things. You got to understand the constraints.
Was there something that caused your epiphany? Because you used to be heavy flips, right? You were all flips,
Oh, I just realized.
and
I
now
hated
you
it.
hate it.
I don't like it. That's all.
Well, here's what
You're
I think
anti-flip now.
It came down to I just got tired of the brain damage. You know,
There's just so many more moving pieces with it.
well. See,
And forecasting nowadays is difficult too. You don't know what's going to happen.
Let me say this. One of the big things I learned. This is work. I don't know if you guys ever studied any of Brian Tracy's stuff. Okay, but Brian Tracy's a master when it comes to business development, sales, everything out there when it comes to that. He's been doing it for 40 some years, and I studied with Brian Tracy, and I was very fortunate to be able to spend almost a year working with him. And during that time, one of the things he talked about that really hit me hard on this was something called the law of complexity. Okay? And he talked about most businesses start and they work off the highest law of complexity. So, for instance, the big one is a perfect example. The highest law of complexity is our government.
Okay.
So to get anything done, you have to move multiple steps, right?
Yep.
Okay, even to get a hammer. Okay, so he went through that, and that's why the hammers cost so much to the government. So they went through that, and it was an exercise. Then we realized that most businesses are developed that way. So what happens is people go out and try to scale based upon a high level of complexity. That's why most of them give up, and they say, "Forget this. I'm not going to do it anymore."
Yeah.
Right? And they get frustrated and very stressed. So if you really want to scale a model, reduce the law of complexity in your business.
Keep it simple.
You've got less things touching the product as it moves along to the profit. At the end of the day.
100%. Yep.
And you have people
So that
that are
was a
outside
big-
your business that aren't bought into the same vision that you are, right?
Yeah,
Contractors and subcontractors, They
I
don't
think
understand what your final product needs to be able to get the money that you want on the back end.
You're right, dude. And you know what the big thing, Brian, too, is I realized, and this is something I've worked with a lot of students on through, my systems and operations training and stuff, is I realized that a lot of people become addicted to rehabs.
They do.
Like that fast
And you want to
cash.
know why? I will tell you this.
HGTV.
Not just that, but you see the difference between what you bought it for and what you're going to sell it
Yep,
for.
Yep.
And no one understands all
Everything
the shit
in between.
Yep. They don't understand all that
numbers all in
cost.
between.
I bought this for 80,000. I sold it for 200. Oh yeah. No, you didn't make 120.
One
Sorry.
One of the things that we developed
Yeah,
in our
right.
business is called profitability matrix. So at any time, I can see, hey, we were going to sell this thing, dude. We're going to walk away with 20 grand. We might as well just rent it out.
Yep.
Or hey, we planned on renting this thing. Our rehab came in super sweet. This neighborhood, and then once we priced it out on the back end, 2 weeks beforehand, we're selling that deal. So it gives us the ability to maneuver. But most people see the big number and the small number and think that everything in between is profit because we're entrepreneurs and we think best case scenario.
Yep.
We don't think like accountants.
That's the thing and people see that, and they also get to the point too where you get to the point where you go, well, I'm gonna buy this to keep my crews busy.
We do
None of
that.
us have ever done that.
Right?
Gotta keep them employed.
Yep. You go, I just got to make sure I keep the crews busy.
I break even.
Right? And then it becomes it's
I used to say that shit. You're laughing because I used to say that shit all the time.
It's like, man, we need that. We can't wholesale.
Yeah, we can't. Man, we got to keep the guys busy, man.
Yeah.
Got to keep them employed, right?
Yep. And that's an easy path to go down, and I've done that for years.
And you can't do that. You can't use time and trade it for no profit. You can't do that.
You can't.
And it's so easy to get in that position. Like I said, you become addicted to it. And then that's what I did. And then I realized that, well, I don't have to do this. That it's all made up. It's all in my head.
Well, what we think is the problem sometimes is when we do find a good contractor, we don't want to lose them. Because
Right.
if we don't give them business, they're going somewhere else.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah,
and so
we
that's
get
the
it.
problem with that model, right? Is it's like we're buying things just to buy them, just to keep them busy, but really it's not in our best interest sometimes.
Jerry, where did that mindset shift happen for you? Was there a moment where that mindset shift
Matrix,
happened?
man. Blue pill, green pill, or whatever.
Yeah, I think that big shift came when we were talking about this a little before, where I literally took a piece of paper, drew a line right down the center of
Pros,
it.
cons.
One side I wrote being in real estate, and the other side I wrote business. And I looked at this and I thought, everything that I'm doing is about being in real estate. And what I mean by that is that it all is around me. I make all the decisions. I'm the creative one. And there's nothing that can happen in regarding a deal unless I'm involved.
Yeah.
Right? I have to do all the offers. I have to do all this stuff. And what I wasn't doing, I wasn't building a true business to become a company. I was instead, I looked at this and I thought, there's a big difference here. And I thought, what's the difference between having a hamburger place that you can scale? Well, it's coming down to systems, processes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having the right people in place. And I said, if I focus on the business side, then what happens over here is I'm just moving product. And houses are nothing, that's all they are. They're houses, apartments, land, whatever. It's nothing more than product.
One of the things that I do admire about you, man, is that you talk about real estate not as real estate. Here it goes. It's farting again.
What is that?
Dude, it's our ice machine.
One of the
I
water
swear,
lines
it
clogged
never
up or something.
farts like this, but you got
It wants to talk
just
too.
press the
Woo,
button.
man.
There we go.
It really had to go.
Pinch it off.
There we go. Pinch
Brian,
it.
you better
Yeah.
check its pants.
There we go. But one of the things I admire about it is that you're looking at real estate like you would any
Anything
other
else.
business, and you're not a real estate investor. You're a business owner.
Exactly.
Your
There's a
product
difference.
just happens to be in real estate. And one of the things that, with this podcast, Real Estate Business Lifestyle, we're business owners that just happen to be in the business of real estate.
Yep.
We're not real estate investors that are trying to be business. No, we're businessmen that just happen to be in real estate.
That's
and
it.
so that's the big differentiator with you. And one of the things I admire about you is you're treating it like a business, and it's just your product, man.
And it took me a long time, Terry, to get through that. And you know, I lost a lot of money and went through a lot of sleepless nights and stuff like that to build a machine like that.
Yeah.
But I realized I had to drastically change things.
Have you looked at any other businesses besides real estate and being able to say, I'm just going to recreate the systems?
Yeah,
that,
because
yeah.
business, you can do it with,
Absolutely.
repeat it with whatever you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
Because once you dial this in and stuff, you
Scalable.
understand it applies to everything.
Yeah.
Okay, it applies to any other company and stuff.
Yeah.
So, and that's, you know, allowed me to buy another company last year. So,
Speaking of that, you have probably had, I would say, thousands at this point. I'll just call it like it is. Thousands of students come through your education program and your platform. And you bought an education company as
Yes,
well to be
yes.
able to add into what you're doing. Talk about that a little bit, that whole process of buying a company, being able to vertically integrate that with your current company and how all that looks.
okay. Well, it's interesting. You know, the last probably, I would say, I guess going on about 7 years now, I've been doing a lot more heavy on our own trainings and helping a lot of people out. And a lot of this has been focused towards like systems and operation side of things.
Sure.
And then also I started moving into an area that I always really loved, and that was acquisitions, sales. So I was doing some of my own trainings on that. And then was it, I guess now we're 2023, so at the end of, towards the end of 2021, I had a phone call from John Martinez, who everybody knows is created the REI Sales Academy.
Yeah.
So he contacted me and he said, "Hey Jerry," he says, "Look, you know, we're looking at, you know, I'm looking at exiting this company, and I wanted to, you know, there was a few people that I thought I would contact, and you were at top of the list." So he reached out to me on this and said, "You know, I wanted to see if you'd be interested in buying the company." I'm like, this was just out of the blue.
Yeah.
So I thought, wow,
Flattered.
yeah. And I said, you know, I think I would be interested.
That's a
Yeah.
whole world. Sales
So
training is
went
huge.
home, told my wife. She goes, "What is this all about?" I go, "Yeah." I said, "Look, he's built a tremendous brand. It's the top real estate investor sales training in the country. There's been some other spinoffs, but everybody has come from that training."
Yeah.
So, you know, we went home talking about it, and literally in a matter of days, I said, "Let's do it." And so I got with John, and we started the initial paperwork. And just so you guys know, in this buying a company is a lot different than buying a deal. It doesn't happen. It
pieces in it.
doesn't happen.
This is
overnight.
real scale.
Can
Right.
you
Just write
Yeah.
you a check. Give me the company.
Can
done.
you give
No.
me cash at close?
Yeah, it doesn't come in to the point where you're just coming in and inking it one day and wholesaling the next day. Now, look, you know, that's for somebody ever bought a company.
Sure.
So it was all new to me on that side of things. So I worked with some different people, you know, consultants and some finance people and stuff like that. But it took right about 8 months to get it done.
Wow.
So, and we closed on it, bought the company. Actually, it'll be 1 year coming up in May.
Wow.
Which I can't believe it's almost a year. So what we bought was, we did buy the REI Sales Academy.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you, man. And it's been a real experience. I mean, when we first bought it, obviously we had to get very acclimated with my team regarding all the processes and
Yep.
everything he built in place. But there was a lot of good systems built in place, so it wasn't too bad. And the cool thing about it, I didn't have to hire a big team or anything like that.
It just molded into what you're already doing.
It did.
It
did.
made sense.
See, Terry, that was the whole thing, man. It was like it fit in what we were doing. And, you know, and I got a lot of people reached out to me. They said, "Man, you were the perfect choice on that." And it made me feel really good, you know, because I worked my ass
Strategic
off.
buyer.
on it.
Validates what you were
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, was
too.
it more
Yeah.
of a passion project, or was it something that just made sense?
It made sense. I mean,
Yeah.
it made sense, you know.
Made dollars, not cents.
Yeah, I wasn't going to, when I spend millions of dollars, I'm not going to do this as a passion thing,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? No, that's passion's maybe $100.
Yeah.
So,
What do you think about that whole passion versus profit thing? Do you believe that you should chase your passion or no? Or do you
Wow.
think that like your pension or your profit or
Well, he said houses were sticks and bricks.
he did say the houses were sticks and bricks on the Scalers only
yeah. I think
mastermind earlier.
You know, I think that my big belief in is I think it really comes down to your intentions more than anything else.
Mm.
Okay? That's what I really believe. Because if you're intentional, you're always going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
You know, intentions are also what attracts things. Okay? So I was very intentional about that. And a lot of people, like when I was buying that company, it was a lot of hard work that I had put in. And a lot of hours just myself putting things together. Because, you know, I worked some deals too with some special funding I put together with this. And so it was a lot to put together. So, but I was very intentional about it.
What's your intention?
And I don't think passion alone would have took me there. I think the intentions are, you know, because what I look at is the intent. See, if you think to me on a passion side of things, passion and motivation sometimes can wash off in the shower. But when you're intentional, that's inside, and the intentions are also, what is that going to do for others? And does that make sense?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in like a love therapy session right
Yes.
now.
Tony
Like,
Robbins.
This is, like, yeah, I mean, this is deep,
Te-
man.
Tony
yes,
Robbins.
Terry, if you would, just lay on the table. And yes.
It'll fit you.
It does seem like you're passionate about business, though.
I am,
Whether it's
yeah.
real estate or not, real estate just happens to be one of the bigger ones, right?
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I enjoy what I do. It's a lot of fun on that side of things. I am very passionate about it, but I think it comes down to if you're going to stay in the long run, you got to have those solid intentions there.
Yeah, I think that many people struggle with scaling real estate because there are so many moving pieces, and they throw up their hands and they stay deal chasers.
Yeah,
You know,
dude,
whereas
I've seen it so many times.
it's possible, you know, and more than possible. And now you're teaching others to basically replicate how to do it.
Yeah, and the cool thing, Terry, is I look at this and it's like, when you guys go to scale this on things, you know, and as we're talking to the Scalers Only podcast, I want you guys to realize, first of all, I think a lot of times you guys put yourself in this position where you think that you're not capable of doing this. And some of you might be watching this, they're brand new. And then you go, oh, I can't scale and stuff. Well, number one, as I mentioned, you got to make sure you define scale, okay? Because that might mean totally different to you than somebody else.
Like there was a guy on the mastermind earlier who had literally texted me. He said, without Jerry for 2 years, there's no way I'd be able to be in another country doing what I'm doing right now. And so scale for him was completely different
Exactly, Terry.
than maybe what it is for me or Keenan or Bobby or even you
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
anyone watching or listening. So like defining like what your end result looks like is extremely important. I'm not one of those guys like, oh, you gotta have this big team, this massive, this and that. Who cares? It's what do you want your lifestyle to look
Exactly.
like, and then reverse engineer that.
Yeah.
That's scale.
Yeah, the scale really, to me, it comes down to ultimately what is it going to give you, you know? And if you look at that, it's so one of the things we do, we talk about in our sales training, we talk a lot about sellers, and we talk about where they're at now to where they want to be. And what we do is we do something we call picture perfect. So we see where they're at now and where they want to be. Well, it's the same way as us as entrepreneurs. Where do we want to be?
Sure.
Okay, and what we do is when we look at this, and a lot of you newer viewers are coming on here, or just starting up your business, or maybe you've been doing a while. Where do you want to be? What does your picture perfect look like? And that's where you really want to be. Your picture perfect might not have anything to do with having 30, 40 people, but you're still going to scale to that, get to that point. So, and what it comes down to is the way you create that is something we call the gap. And the gap is where you're at now to where you want to be.
It's not the clothing store.
Okay? No, not the clothing store. So, and what you do is
Thanks,
on
Peanut
that
Gallery.
on that gap is you learn that the more you widen that gap, the more you want it, and you create urgency to get there. So a lot of you are just starting. You need to widen that gap, because think about this. Here's a great example of this. If you're in a position where you're making $50,000 a year now, maybe you're working a job somewhere and you're making $50,000 a year. If I propose to you that I have an opportunity for you to come work for me for $53,000, that's a very small gap. Okay, is everybody with me on that?
Yeah.
Everybody, it's a small gap, right? So what's the chances of you willing to put in the work to scale that to grow your business, or in this case, take that other job for a $3,000 difference? Very slim,
Sure.
right? But what if I told you I could take you from your $50,000 a year job to $200,000 a year? What does that do to you in your mind? Well, what it does, it creates a much larger gap, and then you want it more, and that creates urgency. So what you have to look at as somebody that's going to scale this business, you need to look at the same thinking that we use with sellers. And that is paint your picture perfect scenario, widen your gap to where you're at now to where you want to be, and you will put in the work.
So it is basically scaling with intention as opposed
With
to just scaling
intentions.
to scale.
Exactly.
But it also comes with a lot of skill sets as well.
Hell of a lot of skill sets.
And we talked about this earlier, is skills are going to be able to literally pay the bills for the next couple of years in this market.
Terry, yeah, that's a big thing, bro. That I think we've talked about that in the.
I mean, just because you can do one thing right now doesn't mean you deserve to get paid a certain amount. Like, you have to develop more skills
Yep.
and put yourself in more value to be able to get paid.
Well, that's why I've been preaching this for the last several months here, really heavy to a lot of people, is that over the last several years, look, the market covered up a lot of sins.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And we were able to do a lot of Hail Marys, throw it out there, and then some idiot would come along, buy the deal or
Hedge
something like
funds.
that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, people weren't really getting discounted properties; they were just getting properties.
They were getting properties. But
Well,
now what
we thought that
happens
this
is
was a monopoly board for the longest time.
it was. And now we've changed that. Now what it has to, you're dependent on skills more than anything else. Skills is what will win you. And I've even had to work with my own team on that. I was like, guys, it's no longer the market that we were in. You have to focus on skills. So that's why I hammer so hard on sales process. That's why we win. Okay? Because we're focused on something that works in any type of market. It's not because you know as well as I do, all of you guys, that we saw over the last several years, a lot of people going out with really no experience. They got all their freaking gold chains on. They're looking. They're looking.
I ain't got mine.
Okay? They're looking pimping and everything else, and it's all. And they were riding the wave in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not
That
hard to
shit's
ride
went
the wave
away.
when it's on top.
Yeah, it's went
but
bye-bye. And quite frankly, I think the market needed to be cleansed.
No,
it
Oh,
did.
there's no question.
Correction.
You
That's
need-
why it's called a correction. It needs to correct itself.
I mean, and it's, I'm not, well, I guess I am kind of knocking those people because I was always that person that, hey, if I made $1, that dollar is getting invested, not being spent, you know, for future. But I think too many people just thought it was too easy for too long. And Elon Musk, he said it best. He's like, money's been raining on fools for way too long.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. And, it's like, if you want to win now, it's all about skills, and you have to master those skills. And not only do you have to maintain those.
That's how you
Yeah.
survive cycles, right?
Speaking of sales.
So, and speaking of skills, sales is probably one of the most,
It
if
is.
not the
It's in
most
everything.
valuable. So, how are you guys then giving that to other people? Because obviously, you bought that company, and that's your main focus. So,
Yeah, one of the big things that we're doing, Ryan, is we're through the REI Sales Academy. What we do is we basically provide what I like as the gold standard when it comes to training for real estate investors to be able to acquire more deals. Okay, but not only acquire more deals, but acquire at better margins, and also applying it where we can do different programs for people. So now we're not a single shot
I love
investor.
that, dude.
Okay, now we go in and we can multiple ways we can help a seller out.
It's gold.
So and
Standard.
it's and what I just today we were just starting and do well. I guess to do this through our academy, we do it through. We have a live weekly training as well as we have a complete online portal for our REI Sales Academy.
So you put your people through all this too, then, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah, they're on every week.
everything is sales.
Yeah, everything's
There
sales.
has to be no sales,
and we
no money coming in.
and they're trained also. We are training our salespeople 5 days a week. So
You have a team of sales beasts, man. I want to meet some of your salespeople.
So they are trained 5 days a week on things, because what we realize is it's not only reviewing, understanding the sales process, it's call reviews. It's understanding those things, because it's too easy to form bad habits in this business.
It is. And you get stuck in a rut. Next thing you know, you're not selling anything.
No, you're not. And you're not.
You
know,
constantly have to refresh.
And the thing is here's the biggest thing that we focus on at the Sales Academy, that our number one thing is this: close all closable deals. Think
I
about
like that.
Close,
Never heard that one before, but I
yeah,
like that.
Close
I like it.
all closable deals. If it's a closable deal, you should close it. The only reason you won't close it is because typically you've missed something in the sales process.
So let me ask you this: how do you let your salespeople define what's a closable deal and what's an unclosable deal? Because for me, especially when you're a sales manager or owner or CEO, whatever, right? Sales director, you want to make sure that you tell everyone can be closable, right? Like you want to have that rah-rah thing. But how do you let your salespeople define what's a closable and an unclosable deal?
Yeah, that's a great question on that. Actually, somebody asked me that today on my sales training call, and I said, "What that part of that is defined by you as a leader." And so what you have to look at first of all is a closable deal is where somebody has the proper, they have the motivation, they have. If you look at it, they have the urgency to take action, and they want to take action. Okay? So that's part of it there. The other second component of this is it has to fit in to one of your buy boxes within your organization. Okay?
Yep.
So if those two fit, you have a closable deal. And the thing is, see, what most investors do, what they're doing is, or either investors themselves or sales team members, is they go out and they generate leads coming in. I don't really care if they're incoming leads through inbound versus outbound leads, however you're generating your leads, whatever on that.
Sure.
But the thing is, the leads come in, and what happens on that is too many people come in and they define sellers as tire kickers. Think about that. Is that true? We define a lot of them that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you as a leader of your organization, you would be like, nah, they're not a tire kicker. Just like
exactly. So what we have to do on that, Terry, is we have to train our salespeople how to close a big percentage of the tire kickers. Think about this. And so if you want to scale this business, you can't scale just based upon highly motivated people that are in pain. That's a small percentage.
Right.
Those are your slam dunk deals. To scale, you have to do it based upon more of the masses. So if you think about this, if I have 100 leads coming into a funnel from a seller, out of that 100 leads, how many of those do you guys think are slam dunks out of 100?
4 or 5.
I'll say 5%.
Probably 2.
Maybe 5.
Yeah, right? 2, maybe 3 at the most. Slam dunks. But how many of them are probably considered tire kickers?
Majority
of them. Okay, so do you want to
massive
scale?
bell curve?
Do you want to scale a business based upon the 2 or 3, or do you want to scale a business based upon the 50 to 60% that come in? Okay, so what happens is that's why a sales process is so important, because what we do is we teach that how can we take the ones that are considered to be tire kickers, and if they're closable, we close them. Because what we do is we go in and we work based upon emotion, not logic. Does that make sense, guys?
Completely.
Yeah. And here's the interesting thing. A lot of people don't realize this. Is the logical brain only processes information at 50 bits per second. The emotional brain processes at 11 million bits per second.
I didn't know that.
That's why you process so much, my friend.
So-
Oh, I process a lot, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like double the emotion. That's
so
like
guys,
20 million.
think on this. What do most sales reps do? All they try to work on is working the numbers.
The logical,
Yeah.
the numbers.
It's always the numbers, right? All the numbers don't
Get
work
more
out.
numbers, get more
Right.
numbers. And
Or they're like, they didn't go with us. They got a higher offer.
it's not always that. Bring the emotion in.
Motion wins.
Yeah.
Even us as sellers, because there's bad deals we get, or we're trying to sell a deal or sell a flip or whatever. A lot of times, like, I go into it like, oh, I don't want the highest offer.
Exactly.
I want the best offer.
There you go.
I want the best. And there's a lot of times I will take the best offer instead of the highest, because I'm like, chances of it closing, or man, it's going to be strung out and I'm going to have X amount of holding costs. You put it in your profitability matrix, you're like, oh, the best offer is actually the lower offer because it's strung out so long.
Absolutely.
You know?
Because it's cash
If it
or whatever.
closes.
Yeah.
If
And
it
see, the
closes.
thing is, that decision you make is ultimately an emotional decision.
Got to run the emotions.
Okay. So and this is interesting because we study this tremendously in the Sales Academy, that scientifically, it's almost impossible for someone to make a complex decision without bringing in the emotions.
Mm.
So do you think, when you're working with sellers, is selling a home or selling a home, land, apartments, is that a complex decision? That's a complex
It's
decision.
emotional as heck. People
Okay.
are tied to
It's
their
very
Right.
emotional for most
So
people.
that's why so many sales reps in this business don't last, and also why so many of them struggle, because they're working on the numbers, the logical side, and they should be working the emotional side.
So I know that this doesn't even matter to you, but for those that are viewing and paying attention and listening, they always want to know, what do you think about the market? Where do you think where it's going? What's happening to the real estate market? What do you foresee? You've been in this business for 29 years.
Through it.
I know it doesn't matter to you because you're still going to make money in any market, and I wish more people had that mindset. But what do you think is going to happen market-wise in the real estate market?
Wow.
Very macro, very macro.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, and you've heard this. Nobody has a crystal ball on
Yeah.
that side of things, but
It's
my belief on this side of things is that, I mean, we've seen what the government's doing. I mean, they pretty well made a commitment that they're going to keep bumping rates until they slow this thing down,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
And so that's one thing that I think we'll see on that side of things. But I also believe that obviously I believe it will settle back down on this. But I just the thing is, we're still seeing a big demand because of the supply and demand side of things. There's still a big demand on that,
Yeah.
and so I think the market overall will continue to be pretty steady on things. But I think that what we're seeing is we're seeing a different market now, where no longer is it just throwing stuff out there. It's to really do well in this market and where it's going. It's going to be strictly relationship driven.
Would you say this is a normal market?
Yeah, and see, Terry, that's the thing is I spent most of my time over the 20-some years in markets like this.
in this market.
And this is to
So
me.
this is no yeah.
this
and that's
is
what I'm
really
saying.
a
It's no-
normal
it's no
Not as bad as
market.
it was
different.
before.
Yeah, and you got to think about it. I mean, a lot of these people that have come in recently, and they say, "Man, rates up, 6-7%."
Used to be more.
They're like freaking out. I mean, when I bought my first home, I told you, I
Yeah,
mentioned
we were off there and we
it was
compared
like,
our rates.
it was like I think I was at 10.5, or at least 10.5, maybe 11%, when my wife and I bought our first home, and we thought that was good.
It's all comparative. People
It
have to
is.
cycle,
It
that's
is.
It's wild.
And so it is. I mean, and we just look at really what it comes down to me more than anything else, is one thing: affordability. So think about that. That's what adjusts. So what happens is, what somebody could afford 12 months ago is totally different what they can afford now.
Yeah.
But they don't want what they can get now. They want what
Exactly.
they could have got 12 months
Right.
ago.
Yeah. So if you look at that, that's what it comes down to. It's affordability. So, and that's what changes the marketplace. So now what we're seeing is a lot of times now we're starting to see seller concessions come back in,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So sellers concessions coming back in. It's not just 20 offers and and I'll pay 100,000 over market and
Waive
stuff.
the inspection.
Right. We're starting to see seller concessions come back, those type of things, and really that's just a normal market.
Yep. It is. So I guess kind of finaling up like where you're at and everything that you built. Where are you going, man? Where are you going? I mean, you just
My
bought
wife
this-
asks me that all
Yeah.
the time.
It's like, where you
Where you
going?
going? I'm going to Columbus today.
Yeah.
So
Go to the
No, I
grocery
mean,
store, man.
And we're grateful for that, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you have, you've built an amazing real estate company that it's a business, and you've got this education company, and they work congruently together. I mean, what does your next 5 years look like, man?
So really, my big focus right now is to grow these current companies I have, And we really want to build my educational companies out tremendously on that.
Yep.
I'm putting a lot of effort into that to, build
that.
things and help people out more
Scale
and more
them.
on building and scaling their business,
If you will.
and our sales training. And I really want to. I think what I really want to be known as, and the brand here side of things, Terry, is I want to be known as, as Jerry Green is the brand, as the one that helps people with overall their systems, operations, and part of those systems is sales.
Yeah.
Okay, and I want to be known as that person that can make a big impact on your real estate investment business, and really change people's lives on that side of things. And that's where I really want to go with this. And at the same time, the real estate side, I want to continue to grow that, and that's more about my team now versus just me. It's more about the team on that side of things.
Yeah.
And then also my two sons coming now into the business. One's going to graduate from high school this year, and then another one, he's 22, and they're wanting to get involved in the business now and
Super
do some things. Yeah, so that's really where I want to go with it on that side of things. And I look at a lot of people say, "Do you want to retire?" I mean, why do I want to retire? That's freaking boring, right?
Do I want to be bored?
You're like, I golf. I hate golf.
Yeah,
I golf on
it's-
Sundays with my
Hate
buddies. I hate golf.
And honestly, I look like I feel like I'm just getting started.
If
And
I
that-
can, I want to put you on the spot for a second, bring you back to basics. So you're great at sales, you're great at business, in general, and you treat everything like a product. In a few sentences to our listeners, how would you sell this episode as a product to them?
As
This episode that we're filming today.
Oh.
How would you sell this in a few sentences to all our listeners? Sell this as a product.
You're putting me
Wow.
on the spot.
I would look at it this way, guys.
With you being the guest on the show, treat yourself and this as a product.
So, first of all, I think we all should hold hands.
Oh, he's being serious. Okay.
I'm just kidding. I'm just
I don't
messing
even
with
have
you.
any food for grace.
No, I think if I was looking at this as a product on things, I would look at it this way here, and that is, this is really, I want you to think of it this way here. Real estate is just the vehicle that we're going through, okay? And it's nothing more than, the product on things. So what I want to show you guys is how to build a scalable business, defining that scalability based upon what you want, defining that, side of things, and then scale it to remove yourself from this, because that's where we create a real company. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's perfect, because I was gonna
like it.
ask if you could give a key piece of advice, but that's
Yeah, I mean, that's what I look
Exactly
at.
how
And
it
I'm
is.
telling you guys on this, it's been a lot of
Trial and
learning
error.
for me over the years, a lot of hard knocks, and and on that side of things. And I think a lot of times people put us on pedestals, right, on
They
this.
do.
But I went through a bankruptcy. You guys know my story too. I lived in Springfield after I built the business up, was really cooking. I lost my first wife to cancer, and basically my son was born, and 2 hours after my son being born, I found out my wife had cancer, and she died 10 months later when I have a newborn baby.
Wow.
So, I went through a lot. I had to rebuild the whole team over again, and it's just, I've been through multiple market cycles, and so I guess one of the things I'm just going to I'll share here too is, no matter where you guys are at, anybody's listening here today, it's like I just want you guys to realize that there's really nothing you can't achieve. There's really no excuses, and if you really want to build this out and scale this into a real business, only thing that's holding you back is you. That is it. And once you understand that, you hold that back, and then what you got to do is tap into the resources that are out there to allow you to plug and play, man.
And there's a lot of resources, man.
Especially
A
nowadays.
lot of resources.
Yep.
You got when I first got started in real estate, it was like Dean Graziosi,
Yeah.
and he had his books, and that was, there was some other guys that were, coming into play, but it was kind of when internet first became a thing. But now there's a ton of resources, ton of information, YouTube, all those types of things. So, man,
Jerry.
I really appreciate you being
Yeah,
on
thank
here.
you so
it's
much
all right,
for
guys.
coming.
Yeah, I've enjoyed being here. This is
Thank you
this
so
is a cool
much.
setting, man.
We appreciate you, man. Do we even need a final thought?
Well, how-
Because I think I can't.
I think that
None of
was-
us can
Just tell
top
everyone
that.
how
That
to
was
reach
a
out to you,
send-off.
how they get a hold of you,
Yeah.
or what's your location, how do they join your courses.
Yeah.
Okay.
True.
Well, a couple things you guys can do is one, I'll tell you our two main websites that we have is
The
one,
Jerry Green, right?
Yep, thejerrygreen.com. Okay, you can go there, and what I'll do is I'll provide you a link too,
Yeah.
guys, for
Let's do
all
it.
your viewers
Perfect.
on that side of things. You can obviously follow me on social media,
TikTok.
yeah, TikTok.
TikTok star,
is
Jerry
growing.
Jerry's going to be dancing in his office.
Yes, yes. To 80s music, right?
Yeah.
Can we get a preview? I'm kidding.
And another thing you guys can do too is if you're interested in really just mastering your sales skills on things, then make sure you check out the reisalesacademy.com. And
Cool.
we #1 sales training for investors in the country, and it's been that way since about 2014. So
Love it, man.
Yeah.
And we'll drop
Awesome.
those links below. Jerry, appreciate you being
Thank
on,
you so
man.
much.
Guys.
A pleasure. Thank you for being a mentor, friend, and just being here, man.
that's all right. I appreciate you guys.
Really
Thank you so
appreciate
much.
Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to the Scalers Only Show, where we talk real estate, business, lifestyle, and everything in between. To you guys, my man Jerry Green, and from us, we'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.